Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Mirna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. Isn't that the sweetest sound? That's the sound of another sale or another dollar hitting your Shopify e-commerce store. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. It's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Sign up for $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/transform, all lowercase. Welcome back to Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Lives radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Mirna Young, and sitting in the guest chair is my son, Kevin Mortley, political commentator. And today we are going to be talking on stagflation. Have you heard of that word? And immigration and Dodge and all things, because the last time we had this conversation, it was well received. So we're going to be just talking about the political climate. So welcome back, Kevin.
How you doing, folks? Hope your day is going very well, as mine is today too as well.
Yes. All right. Awesome. All right. So let me give you guys a brief introduction again to Kevin. Kevin Mortley is a dynamic political commentator and a serial entrepreneur with a significant presence in Canadian business and political landscape. With a background in journalistic broadcasting, Kevin has a keen eye on current affairs and a deep understanding of the political dynamics. As the founder of several businesses, including a screen printing and media company named Tightwork, he combines a passion for community activism with creative entrepreneurship. Kevin has also ventured into the culinary industry as a chef and food delivery business owner, focusing on halal means. He is my son and frequently shares his insights on politics, race relations, and economics. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Like I said, our topic is stagflation, what it is, and is America heading there? So, okay, Kev, as we start off, one of the significant consequences of this word stagflation is a drastic slowing down of the economy, coupled with high inflation, leading to reduced consumer purchasing power and potentially higher unemployment. Do you think that the mass unemployment initiated by Trump policies is sending us into stagflation?
That's a pretty good question. Stagflation, if anybody heard about it, is literally is like a economic condition where it's a slowing down of the economy. So there's very high unemployment coupled with basically high inflation, right? The term stagnation came about like around the 70s. So it's not a new term or anything like that. It was just basically where, you have high unemployment and you have high inflation too as well. The reason why we're talking about this is just so our viewers can be prepared if they see the climate changing, what they could do to offset these conditions.
Okay. All right. So yes, there is, the federal workers are unemployed. A lot of people, the DUI, which is one of the things we talked about last time, they're being unemployed. So there's a lot of unemployment. And then we have the high inflation. And normally what I understood is when there's high inflation, then the federal government or the Federal Reserve actually lowers interest rates so that they can combat that. But apparently when we're in this stagflation, their hands are tied. So yeah, talk to us about that. What does your research tell you about why stagflation is bad for the country or the economy?
Yeah, so basically, and every government has their own economic policies, what they believe in, right? Through various different ways. Critics of the former president, the current president, sorry, they would say that this will, boost the country's manufacturing, would kind of flatten the inflationary process, or bring jobs back to America. But um, that was something that was happening in the mid 1950s into the 1960s. What's going on in the economy right now, basically, is that most of the businesses that are created and most of the businesses that we are in right now are service oriented, right? So that included, supply chain challenges, shifts in the customer's behavior, also will inflict inflation too as well. Whatever any specific policy that leads to a stagflation depends on the range of variables, including like global economics, monetary policies, also, unforeseen events like COVID and stuff like that. So, trying to basically have an economy which is just nativist, basically buy USA or buy only in Canada, it's not really going to do anything in this type of economy because we're so reliant on free trade and the services. So bringing back manufacturing, you know, might actually hurt the economy, even though it sounds good, then basically do something good for its citizens.
All right. Well, I wasn't aware that they're bringing back manufacturing. I thought that the Trump policies with firing the federal employees and was he was trying to go to lower the deficit. I didn't hear anything with bringing back manufacturing. So where is that happening?
Well, basically that what Trump is basically trying to do, when firing the government employees, like he's trying to have less regulations so he could deregulate and unstabilize the U.S. economy right now. Basically, with him, when he has less people there to regulate, then he could basically do what he wants, right? For example, I was seeing the other day, like people were trying to go into Mexico or come back from Mexico, and they're getting these big long lines entering into the United States from Mexico because there's actually less people working at the airports, right? So that's going to cause long lines, especially if you want any documents. For instance, if you want like a passport or some kind of government ID, it's taking very a long time to get this thing done. So basically, it's showing people that if it's gonna take this long, I'm not gonna go enter or exit the country. Basically, so it's actually hurting you guys travel and tourism business too as well, right? So he's trying to save money, but is actually hurting himself too as well because we actually do need these people to make everything move smoothly, and it's taken back from you guys when it comes to government.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of problems. I mean, we haven't gotten into the immigration topic yet, which we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But all right. So this stagflation, they're saying that we're going to enter it into 2025 because it is high unemployment and high inflation. So, what advice do you have for Americans as we head into this period?
For sure. Like anything, basically like any type of financial period which you're not really too sure of. There's a couple steps that you could take, budget wise. So you could build yourself up for a stagflation or a recession, the big E. Hopefully we're not going there. But just in good times or bad times, there's always a few that you could take, that I would tell the viewers to do. So first, one of the first things you could do is budget wisely, right? Create a detailed budget outline, expenses and saving goals. That'll help you identify areas where you can cut costs if necessary, right? The next thing you could do is build an emergency fund, right, Mom? We always used to tell me that you never know what's going to happen down the road. So it's always good to put away, for me, when I get a paycheck, I put away at least 10% of that into an emergency fund. So, and if anything does happen or you want to make a big purchase, you have something there you could draw from, right? Also, if you're into investing, right, you could do diversify your investments, right? So if you have a portfolio and you're investing in things, diversify your different investments that you have. And if you don't know what to do, there's also people out there who do this for a living. You can consult with a financial advisor to ensure that it aligns with the risk that you're actually willing to take at the time. And like anybody, and stay informed, watch the news, watch the climate, what I'm saying, see what new economic trends are out there that you could take advantage of, because things are popping up every day. We live in an AI technology right now. So, for me, I take advantage of the new AI technologies when it comes to, diversifying my portfolio. Also, if you have any debt, don't take on any new debt, or review the debt that you do have, right? Pay down on the high interest ones first, where possible. And basically, if you have debt, just see if you could bargain, consolidate your debt into one debt. So basically that, you're not paying as much as before. You always could go back to these creditors and be like, you know what, my situation is not the same as before, and get that debt lowered, right? Also, be cautious when you're dealing with like big purchases, especially in stagflation or a recession where you might be going into. You might think twice about purchasing those Gucci sandals, right? Or going out there buying that nice car that you always wanted, or basically buying a home, right? So you have to understand your own finances and basically, tone it down or wait till when the economy is a little better, right? Also consider alternative income sources. Most of us nowadays, we work in 2-3 jobs, or we have one job. So, there's different platforms out there. I know a lot of my friends, on the side, they do DoorDash and then do Uber, So basically, if your economics slowing down and you want some extra money, you can also do that too as well.
Okay. All right. That's a good
Or
list.
seek professional advice, seek professional advice every day. I got people emailing me and telling me about, new opportunities. So just keep ear to the ground and just basically just figure out what works best for you and your situation.
I've been an entrepreneur since the early 90s, even winning the Entrepreneur of the Year award. But when I first thought of starting my business, I had the passion and the vision, but zero clue where to start when it came to selling online. This is where Shopify can help. Shopify helps you set up your digital storefront. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Mattel and Drew House to brands just getting started. Whether you're selling physical products, digital downloads, or services, Shopify has everything you need to launch, manage, and scale your business. Shopify is also packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. Get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. Easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. And best yet, Shopify helps you transform your business with expertise in everything from managing inventory to processing returns. So, if you're ready to sell, you're ready to Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for $1 per month trial period and start selling today at shopify.com/transform. Go to shopify.com/transform.
Okay. Yeah, I like that list. My goodness. You had so many, so I'm not sure where to circle back to. But one of the things I want to circle back to first is the recession versus stagflation. Apparently, the stagflation is worse than a recession because in a recession, the Federal Reserve is able to kind of stimulate the economy with maybe lower interest rates or something. But in a stagflation, their hands are tied. So that's one thing that I just want to, let our listeners know that stagflation is worse than a recession. The second thing that gave some pretty good ways to make sure you start building up your nest egg, right? Um, uh, we have always, I taught you, your sister, I live by that rule myself, to always have emergency funds, to always have, my pastor was talking just on a couple Sundays ago that in the African American community, most people don't have $400 because they spend everything. They don't save, right? He's saying that, and they certainly don't even have $5,000 to loan you if you're in a crisis or something. They don't have the $5,000 to loan you, and they're $400 away from it. And I've heard that so many different times that people are one paycheck away from if something happens to them because they don't save. And I'm not quite sure where that culture came from, but it's in the Bible that you never know when trouble is going to come, right? Trouble doesn't tell you when it's going to come. Your sister was walking, going along happily in her job, just got her promotion. And then one night she's having dinner and someone says, go on a call. The next day she's fired, right? So you never know when these things are happening. It's just like a divorce. You'll be depending on your husband for your income. And one day he comes home and says, I want a divorce, right? So you have always got to be living your life where you have emergency money. You can walk down and get in a car accident. Your aunt slip and fell. You know what I mean? Your aunt works. Yes, a lot of people, you're right, don't have the funds because they're working and they're paying bills and they don't have a lot left back to save 10%. When I was, in my business, now it's easier, but when I was in my business, as I was, when you were younger, right? I heard that you should save 10% and tithe 10%, which means it's 20%. You got to be taken out of your money. And now that I don't have a lot of debt, it's easy for me to do now. But when, your kids were younger and I had all these different things to pay, saving 20%, because you also have to tithe. You also have to give to charity is how money circulates. So yes, passive income. That's another thing you talked about. Whether you're gonna, one of my first books was talking about a side hustle where I called it minding your own business, which means while you're working for the man, you're minding your business on the side. And, that's basically how I started my limousine service, a business on the side, right? And then when I lost my job way back in the 90s, then I went on to become a limousine entrepreneur, very successful at it. So yes, you start building a side business, you start doing your DoorDash, you start doing things, and then the pastor was saying that 40 something percent of African Americans don't invest in the stock because they never learn. I never learned until quite recently, and I still don't even know. I just put the money there. I don't even know what's going on with it. But I never learned about investing in stock. And I'm just one of those regular, Black people that don't invest in a stock. Now that I have some extra income, I just put it in there and I don't even worry about it. You know what I mean? But Yeah, passive.
Yeah, like for me, when I get into it, I think we talked to that back too as well. Like I basically, just to tell the viewers, to get some context behind it, I invest in like a dividend type of stock. So basically, I deal with the ones that pay monthly, right? So I put it, for instance, it's like a REIT stock. So a REIT stock is like a real type of fund, and whatever you have in there, they give you 1% and 2%, 3%, all depends on the company, a dividend back every month. For me, I'm not there every day. Like a day trader will be okay, up and down, up and down, up and down. I leave it in there, and hopefully it grows. You know what I'm saying? So
Especially now. They send me
stagflation
notices.
gonna
They send me these notices every day.
bottom out.
This is down.
This be very flat when it comes.
Yeah, but like I was saying, I never went into stock. I think it's the last 6 months. I'm in my 60s. You know what I mean? So I'm one of those 40% of Black people that didn't get into stock, and I didn't get into it because I didn't know about it and I didn't have the time to learn. And I decided, you know what? I still don't have the time to learn, but I'm dabbling in it because everybody was making all kinds of money, and I went into the Nvidia and all that, and now that's crashing and all that. So that's probably a bisection for a segue into stocks. Is in the period of stagflation, I understand that gold is a good thing to invest in, and I think I dabbled that I bought some gold. So because the stock market is yeah, it's in a conundrum right now. It's up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what do you invest in a stagflation?
Well, that's a good question. You gotta, like, since Trump's been talking about tariffing the whole world, not just Canada. The stock market has taken a hit. You know, Tesla has lost $1 trillion since December.
They're down
Crazy, you know what I'm saying?
41%.
In
They're saying that never seen a stock crash like that.
yes,
Yep.
like that.
Well, that's not because of
And
people don't like him, right? So totally different.
yeah, he did it to himself. That's why I wonder, for myself, what is it for them to get into government? You know, because you were doing well, or so-called doing well before you got into government, and now when you got into government, your stock is crashing. You know, so for them, I think their eyes are bigger than the mouth, like you would say. So getting into there, being a so-called page, but in especially in an economy like right now, I know a lot of people are into crypto, currencies, which is very risky stuff to get into, right? So
Used to go into
they can offset that stock market with the crypto, because the crypto market has nothing to do with the stock market. It's two different things, right? So there's a lot of different things, like I said before, diversify your portfolio into this thing. Like, we grew up in the 80s with Ronald Reagan and these type of economic downturns. I don't think that will happen now in this type of economy. So it's because all service based, and there's a lot of things out there you can get your little hands on to make money, right? And there's YouTube, and there's all these tutorials out there. You can learn from these things that you probably have to go to school for 4 years and spend a lot of money. You can just watch on YouTube, for 5 minutes, and get the same type of training, or look into what's going on for today. So there's a lot of things that you could do. Basically, you just gotta keep your ear to the ground and figure out what works best for you, right? But don't throw all your money down the drain. Like you said before, Mom, it's 10%, or altogether it's probably like 20% you could take out of your own portfolio to take risk. But when you take your risks, you really gotta watch your risk too as well, right? But 20% of your whole portfolio is nothing. So if you lose that, you're not going bankrupt or anything like that. It's just the risk factor you have to take, right?
Right. So do you agree that gold is a hedge against the stagflation? What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, the gold especially any economic downturns, gold will always get higher in value, right? So I don't know what gold is, bonds, gold, mineral wealth, will always be a little higher when the money is getting kind of lower when it comes to trading. So it's always good to hold on to those type of assets, because if you look at probably the market today, if I take a check in it, gold's probably going through the roof really right now because with the
Well, it was at one point in time. I think it went to like $2,300 an ounce or something like that. Yeah, I don't, like I said, I put my stuff and I don't go, not time to check it. But yeah, gold was going through the roof. It kind of still is. You're very right.
yeah,
If you make some money.
yeah, probably. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
That's the only way to go about it,
huh? Any kind of commodity is actually good, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
including oil, right? Okay.
sure.
All right. So before we move on to immigration, which is our next topic, anything else we want to say about the economy and stagflation?
Yeah. So the the stagflation, honestly, it's I think it's man made, like it's policy driven basically. Um, the less I feel you give to the working population, the less you're gonna get back. Right? A lot of people don't really understand that. It's like whatever little money that we get from the government, especially with taxes and stuff like that, like within a month or two, that's coming right back to the government too as well, right? So for to give your working class people less money, right? It's gonna slow the economy because economy is always built on spending. The customer confidence to spend, especially on the big ticket items like a home, land, stuff like that. That's you buy a house, you're locked in for 25 years, right? That's something that you could always get back. And if people are not buying homes, right? What happens to the home prices? They go down, right? So you might buy for instance, I'm just using a round number, a house for $1 million, 5 years ago, but when you're selling, you lose money, right? So it's all about the economy, right? The people willing to spend the money blind eye and be like, I got a job, so I could buy that purchase, I could take that trip, right? I could buy these nice chandeliers from my home, right? So it's you're better off, given to the people rather than taken back from the people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is why the economy is always tied to the unemployment rate, because you're right. If you don't have money, they can't. They not only can't they eat, but they're not going to buy. You're right. A car, your housing, furniture, any of that stuff. Right? They're just gonna, pay their bills, and that's about it because they don't have anything else. And when they can't pay their bills, I mean, there was a time when there was a big homeless population. People are sleeping in their cars because they can't afford rent because rent started to spike. So I don't know. Right. You're right. So unemployment, which is basically why I started this conversation.
It has to give somehow, like, when you really think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's basically
It has to give somewhere, right? Yeah. It has to give somewhere. Like the rent right now is ridiculous. And we used to have rent control, before. Like I don't know when this happened where they're allowed to raise your rent, especially in Toronto here. 2% every year. You don't even get 2% raise every year. So I don't know where they're going with that. And affordable housing, obviously, everybody has a right, especially in Canada, everybody has a right to affordable housing. But look where they're putting you. You know what I'm saying? In the ghetto. That's where their affordable housing is. I don't think anybody wants to live in the ghetto. You know what I'm saying? That's what your means are. That's what your needs are. But for me, if it's affordable housing and it looks beautiful, for sure, like I would like to live there. And plus, when they're giving you these things, they're not even upkeeping it to where it's livable.
right.
You understand? So there's a give and take. There's a give and take to these type of things, right? So I agree. But at the same time, maintenance of it.
Well, in Florida, there's no really affordable housing because what the builders are doing is they're going luxury. Everything is beautiful and all these extra things like dog parks and barbecue stations and all that stuff.
Yes.
And they're charging a lot more because in order for them to be able to get money back, they gotta go luxury. So they're not going affordable. So yeah, we have been, fighting for affordable housing, but it's no affordable housing because all the new stuff is all luxurious and it's costing a lot of money because there's apparently a lot of people who have money, so they're catering to those people.
Yeah.
Right. So okay.
Yes.
All right. So that's good. That's good. To wrap up the economy question. Now, I want to talk about immigration and this stagflation as well, because one of the things that I know is that they say that whatever is good for the bee is good for the hive. So we know that people come to this country, including our family, to benefit their downline, their family, right? They want generational increase. So they come to America because America is like the promised land. It was mine, right? So they come to America and they hope to elevate themselves, right? So immigration is good for the bee, but immigration is also good for the hive because the government or the country gets lower cost, employment because the immigrants work longer for cheaper. So it's benefiting them. So I don't understand why the Trump administration thinks that sending immigrants back will make America great again. Let's discuss that.
Yes. Well, at the end of the day, before I get into any points, I think it's more of nativism. I look at it like, and I think we touched about this in our last podcast, is that they have this assumption that they are the creator of this land, or they're the natives of this land, which is completely false, right? They teach you that in school. It was like our forefathers came here and we made America. America's here way before they ever got here, right? And the way they got the land was very deceiving to the native people, like especially the native Indians, right? So you can see in the numbers how they did that to us, right? And for instance, especially like the white people, they have a conscience in the back of their mind that their whiteness is very fragile when it comes to other races coming in, because a white person mixes with a Chinese or a white person mixes with a black, they become black. So they're very aware of their own self-destruction when it comes to immigration and stuff like that. I think it's more tied into that self reliance of keeping their own race alive than actual doing any good for the economy whatsoever. Right? But I could jump into and tell some points here that I have that, these things, they might look like a shiny new quarter, right? But that quarter is gonna get dull eventually over time, right? So like I said before, it's like job protection, right? Oh, any government, I can't just blame Trump. They're always gonna be like, oh, if these guys are coming in and they're making the job market less attractive, basically, because they come in and they work for less. You don't have to pay them as much. So that coincides with the whole entire government too as well, right? So the wages are not going to go up when you could go get an illegal or a newcomer to the country just because they need to work. You pay them lower wages, right? So that trickles back into the regular economy too as well, right? So some of the proponents of reduced immigration argue that the limit numbers of immigrants can protect jobs for native-born citizens, particularly in times of economic uncertainty, which they believe is reducing competition for jobs and help lower unemployment rates, right? But they don't want to do them themselves. It's very hysterical to me, you know what I'm saying? So like they're like, oh, jobs, 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 right? For us, but then they don't want to do those jobs. Who's picking your oranges and grapes and strawberries in the hot sun? Are they gonna do it? No, right? So you have to have this flow of immigrants, especially like seasonal immigrants. Most of these people come and what they do, they work for a season, right? They get a visa for a season, then they go back to their country. And a very few of them stay and become illegal if they really do have to, right? The next thing is wage concerns. Like I said before, I already got into that. The wage concerns, right? So if you bring in somebody in, from wherever, it's like your wages, right, are not going to be as much as you want it to be, right? Particularly for low skilled jobs, like I was saying before, right, Jim? Right? They argue that the wages for the native worker might stabilize or increase, right? That's what they believe too as well, right? Also, there's a cultural and there's a social cohesion, like I told you from before, right? Where some people argue that high level of immigration can lead to social tensions and cultural challenges. Like I said before, that's a nice way to say it, right? But they feel that more controlled immigration policies, right, may help maintain social cohesion and national identity. All right. So we talked about that earlier about the identity of America. America is the melting pot. People, no matter what they look like, they're American. When you come here to Canada, we don't say we're Canadian. We say we're Jamaican. We say we're Guyanese. We say we're Italian. We say we're Polish. They don't say they're Canadian. But when you talk to an American, they can look like this and they can look like that, but they're all Americans at the end of the day, right? Okay. So there's a funny thing I want to talk about is that I think for the first time, right, the Americans beat the Chinese in a math contest, right? The math contest, right? And when you look at the two sets of contestants, the Americans and the Chinese, guess what nationality were Americans?
The Americans were like Chinese.
They're all Asian, right? So you're not going to be like, oh, they're Chinese. No, they're all American.
They're all Americans. Right.
Funny type of thing, right? They're all American, no matter what they look like, too. And for the Trump administration, like this security question, right? He's dog beating everybody. Even in our country, we have the same thing. Dog baiting people, but okay, these Americans are coming in and they're doing crime, like with this trade, Esequiba, I think I'm saying it right around these Venezuelans. So he brought up a war that nobody put together since World War I and II. You know what I'm saying? Since the War of 1812, which people don't know, that's the war between Canada and the United States back in the day. These powers that he has to step up his immigration, and a lot of people don't understand them. From this time when Biden was in office to now when Trump is in office, Biden still beats them when it comes to deportations. President to the next. So Biden was deporting way more people than Trump is ever doing right now, right? So that's the thing. Like, that's behind the scenes. Biden wasn't broadcasting, throwing all these people out and stuff like that. This is what he built his whole campaign about, right? That was the political strategy, right? You're gonna feed people the smoke, the mirrors about, oh, they're doing this and they're taking over this neighborhood and this then he's robbing the cookie jar from underneath you, right? So those are the things that most of the Americans, because you guys voted for him, right, are worried about. But now, you're seeing them take jobs away from veterans,
Yeah.
right? Take
Yeah.
jobs away from social programs,
Right.
destroying the Department of Education.
Yes.
They're gonna feel, right? They're gonna feel. So hopefully we can get through as a country, both of us, because Canada is still America too as well. So whatever happens to you is gonna happen to us.
Yeah.
Trickle down effect.
You're connected. Yes, we're connected. Right.
Yep.
I sold because I'm a realtor still. I sold a house to a Canadian in 2015. And I met with them last month because we made friends. And they says, "Oh no, they're not selling, they rent it out and they make some money and all that." And then last week she calls me and said, "Oh, we're gonna sell a house." And I want to know, I'm sure this was going on with this trade wars. And you saw my sister was saying that the Canadians that come here as snowbirds, this stuff that's going on between Canada and the United States and the dollar, the Canadian dollar being so weak, they're getting out. So yes, there's a lot of fall back from what's going on. And the bad thing is that, you look at it, it's only 3 months in. What are we going to do in 4 years? Right. But yes, there's a lot of fallout from these policies. And every day you see more executive orders, more stuff coming down the pipe. And yes. So, all right. But yeah, this immigration thing is big, but it's good that you point that out because I did not know that. But yeah, what Trump likes is an audience. So yes, he is making it bold. He is holding up his signed executive orders every day, and he's feeding press.
Yeah.
He's feeding press. And yeah. If Biden was deporting people, then he wasn't doing it for show. He was doing it maybe because of whatever. So I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's good. So, all right. So now let's move on to Elon Musk, right? What do you think he's trying to do with Dodge, Department of Government? Doge, right?
Yeah.
What is he trying to do there? And I know it's backfired on him because now he is the fall guy. He's the hated guy. And you're right. You said something about why did he want to be in the government? My husband thinks it's because of SpaceX and he doesn't care about Tesla because SpaceX is what feeds him. So what is he trying to do?
So
Obviously.
this is my opinion. So Doge is supposed to be an acronym for government efficiency, right? So he's trying to look for government efficiencies in the government to save the government money going forward, right? So he's going into Social Security, he's going into Department of Education, he's going into even non-for-profits that have nothing to do with the government that get USAID, and he's trying just to get rid of everybody over there. That will save the government money, right? When they're saving this money, right? They're saving it so they could give tax cuts to the 1%, basically. They have this theory is that if the corporations, pay less taxes, they're gonna hire more people or something like that, right? Which they don't do. The more money they make, right, is the less they give their workers.
Yeah.
And in any type of efficiency or any type of technology that goes forward, right, they're gonna slash and cut.
Yeah.
Right? That's what Elon's been doing with Tesla, right? And that's what these corporations do. Saying to pay their employees a lot less, and every year you see them getting more and more money. For instance, with the medical insurance sector, there's a guy there, Louis Manginoni, right? He went and committed murder against a CEO of one of the biggest corporate medical corporations in America. And just doing some background on that guy, he was getting raises of $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year. You know what I'm saying? Like, you feel me? Like, and that's
and then they don't
little
pay
small
claims.
guys like me and you.
Right, exactly.
Yes, and they don't pay claims. So 20%, almost 40% of the claims, 40% of everybody that's coming to you like, yo, where's my, I pay into this, they're denying them.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a shady type of business right there. And, they want to do all these tax cuts, for the rich 1%, and they need to find money to justify those tax cuts. Right?
That's good. I did
So
not know that.
like you can't, yeah. So you can't.
I thought they were doing it so that they can reduce the national debt. I mean, I didn't know they were trying to, take the leader in Paul.
Listen, yeah, never in life they're gonna get over that national debt. Like, you hear what I'm saying? Like, they can't. If they do that in this term, all of us are going to be in the poorhouse, right? Because most of that money is tied into government services, right? You slash and burn. Remember, I think I was reading something. They fired guys who have they keep the nuclear warheads safe. Just went down the line because some of these departments, you don't know the little stuff that they do, right? So he slashed and burned a department, right? And there were guys there that kept the nuclear warhead safe. So they're scrambling and be like, where are these guys? Where are these guys? And they can't get a hold of them. You know why they can't get a hold of them? Because they once they got rid of them, they got rid of their email too as well. The government emails. So you can't find them, you can't call them, you don't have nothing. You wipe it out. Now you're scrambling, looking for the guys who have a national security in their hand. Right? I don't know if they got them back, but that's a calamity show. What kind of clown show is this? Right? And these are the people that you trust to have safe drinking water, clean air, saying stuff like that. Schools, I don't know how that's going to move forward. Public schools, how that's going to be moving forward, right? So elections has consequences, I believe.
Yeah.
And
it's Kamala Harris's tagline. Yes, elections has consequences. Yep, and yes, all we can do is sit back. My husband says, watch it burn.
Watch it burn. Yeah, like, it is outside of the house looking at me, like all these years I was putting into this house and it just crumbling to the ground. Right? But there's a saying, once like something burned down, there's always new renewal, basically. When something burns down, it always brings new life. So let's see what new life this will bring to us going.
That's a good positive spin. I use that spin when there's a hurricane and a hurricane comes and blows everything away. And then you get new houses, you get new stuff. But I'm not sure of a country. Let's see if that analogy works for a country too.
It's a lot.
Wow. Well, that was good. That was good. So we touched on some good stuff, Kevin. I loved our conversation. Yes. We touched on Doge. We touched on immigration, the stagflation, the economy, investing, passive income. Right. Yes. Good conversation. I love it. All right. So let's talk about you a little bit as we end up. So what do you want their listeners to know about you and your projects that are going on right now? I mean, last time you told us about, how you came about Tightwork, your business. So what do you want to share about your current projects?
Yeah, so I talked about Tightwork. That was what my initial baby that I created. So like my mom said, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have a halal meal prep and catering business too as well, called Esequiba. I just revamped the website. Before I was paying into, a lot of people have their websites through a third party host. So now I actually own the .com of Esequiba and the .ca. So anybody wants to get halal meal prepper to around that area, you can hit me up on there too as well. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing as of right now. And going forward, I feel that I'm gonna take a little bit from my initial business, which we call down here social enterprise. If you guys know anything about social enterprise, I'm probably one of the first people that actually put this into existence. So it's a thing where basically I would give a customer, somebody who's willing to work with me, a piece of my business for business, basically, right? So my concept of social enterprise would be that. So I'm gonna take the food business for an example. Is that you know in my working price, I put a 10% or a 5% increase in the price. So for that person, not knowing every 3 months, they're going to be getting some money back from me type of thing. You know what I'm saying? So one day you might wake up, because I take everybody's information, I take their email and whatever. I mean, you wake up and you find an extra $20 in your pocket. So in real life, that's in a reward program, they say. You know what I'm saying? Reward program. You go to McDonald's, you have your coupon, your coupon, right? And if you buy a certain amount, they give you something free back, right? So like nowadays, like that's kind of corny. People want money in their pocket, man. You know, like when you do your taxes, especially in Canada here, every 3 months we get back GST, right? Because they know everything we buy, we pay in GST. So even though it's not the correct amount, if I take all my bills and be like, well, this is my GST for the last 3 months, it's way less than what they give you back, but it's something kind of like a rebate, basically they give back to you. But I'm doing this on a business level. Right. So I think a lot of us, going forward, just to get everybody going, like you said, like a side hustle. Side hustle could be, I'm gonna buy halal meal prep from Kevin because I know I'm gonna get something back every 3 months or something like that, right? So is a brand incentive, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm doing as of right now. I put the website up. I own the website now. Before I never owned it, so I'm 100% own the website now, and I put my stuff out there, different channels and stuff like that. So I'm looking for that residual income, side hustle income going forward.
Okay, I like it. Well, the last
And if you want to get a hold of me, right, on those platforms, it's Esequiba at Instagram, right? So I'm the only one with Esequiba on Instagram. Also, you could catch me on Facebook. Just put Esequiba Foods on Facebook, and you could reach my page and reach me from there too as well.
Well, nobody knows how to spell Esequiba. I'm going to link out to it, but do you want to spell it for those listening?
So it's Esequiba.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. And yes, that is a Guyanese name. So I'm glad he's so reaching back up to his roots. Yes.
I put a little flair to it. I put a little flair to it.
Yeah, I know, because it's Guyanese is Esequiba. You put the ba, all right, but still, it's the source that counts. Yes. All right. So I will link out to your webpage, and hopefully, you can get some you can get some business there. So I'm so appreciative of you coming on the show and sharing your knowledge about economy and political commentating, what's going on in America as a Canadian.
Yes.
I'm glad that you keep your ears to the ground and know what's going on in the world. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much for a great conversation. All right. So listen, guys.
Thanks for having me.
What was that?
So thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yes. Great conversation. Yes. Who else am I going to talk these things with?
Yeah, for sure.
You are my political.
We always have a good conversation. So
What was that?
yes, we always have good conversations.
Well, of course. Yes. And not because you're my son. I have good conversation with everyone. All right. Well, yes, I appreciate you and I appreciate you coming on and talking about these current events and current topics. I'm pretty sure that people that are listening found it very interesting and stimulating because I did too. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you guys tuning in to this week's episode of Transforming Your Mind so you can transform your life. Follow Kevin on Instagram. If you're in Canada, Toronto, support him in his business so that, hey, we got to keep the money circulating in our Black community and support our entrepreneurs. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Kevin, for being on the show. And until next time, namaste.